The house loomed large with its marble floors, gold chandeliers, and velvet drapes, but it was colder than the night breeze outside. Little Zara and Rayan, only 7 and 5 years old, sat silently in their large room full of costly toys they never played with. If you're new, please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and don't forget to share it with your family and friends. Also, let us know where you're watching from. Each evening, after being tucked into bed by a nanny or a maid who could hardly meet their eyes, the sobbing would begin whispery at first, then upraised. Whimpers muffled by pillows and choked back by the hollow walls. Their father, Camel Faris, a successful businessman, hardly batted an eyelid. If he did not express it. His days were spent in meetings, negotiations, and ringing phones that buzzed nonstop. His affection for his children was hidden behind stacks of paper and late night returns. It wasn't always this way. 2 years prior, the home was full of warmth. Camel's wife, Nadira, had been the pulse of their home. Her laughter reached every corner, and her arms were the only place the children ever felt secure. But after she died suddenly, everything changed. Camel buried himself in work, believing the best thing he could do to shield his children was offer them the best of everything. The best tutors, the best clothes, the best toys. But he never caught on that what they needed couldn't be purchased. The children ceased questioning. Rayan became withdrawn and silent, and Zara hugged her mother's photo every evening before going to bed crying. Maids arrived and departed one after the other, each of them ordered to ensure tidiness, hygiene, and discipline. None of them lasted more than a few months. The house could appear perfect on the outside, yet on the inside it was disintegrating with grief. Even the staff were whispering among themselves. Those unfortunate children. One of the cooks whispered, "All that money and no happiness. The gardener used to say, it's not home anymore. It's a palace with no soul." Camel didn't listen to these whispers. He didn't notice the tears. He assumed silence meant all was well. What he didn't realize was that 2 little hearts wept for a mother's love, to be seen, to be held, and to be loved. And in this mansion of gold, the only thing lacking was love. Sophia came on a gray Monday morning, with a little bag and an unflappable, peaceful attitude. She had been recruited quickly after yet another maid quit unexpectedly. Mr. Camel Faris, as always, hardly looked up from his tablet when she was presented. "Just do the routine," he told her. "They eat at 7, sleep at 9. Keep the place clean." Then he went away into his study, the door closing decisively. Sophia gave a respectful nod, but her attention was caught by the 2 children who stood at the top of the stairs, gazing down at her. Rayan gripped the railing with tight fingers, his eyes wary. Zara peered from behind her brother's back, her stuffed bear clutched to her chest. Their eyes weren't curious or angry, they were fatigued. Sophia had seen those eyes before, in children who had lost more than anyone realized. She didn't smile too much or speak too loudly. Instead, she simply said, "Good morning," and walked calmly to the kitchen, letting them see her without pressure. Her first day was quiet. The children did not speak to her, and she did not initiate conversation, but she observed everything. The uneaten meals, the avoidance by Zara of the dining room, and the fixation of Rayan on window for hours at a time. At bedtime, she tucked in their blankets with care, and rather than hurrying out, murmured, "Sleep well," before leaving the door ajar. Sophia had cleaned many houses in the past, but this one was special, not because of the money, but because of the hollowness. She could feel the silent sorrow in every room, the yearning that permeated the space. As she cleaned Zara's room, She found a small notebook with drawings of a woman and two children, always holding hands. In Rayyan's drawer was a folded paper that read, "I miss Mama." Her heart ached. That evening, while the mansion became dark and Camel was alone in his office, Sophia remained standing in the hallway outside the room of the children. She heard Zara sniffle. Then Rayyan softly said, "Don't cry. Mama won't like it." Sophia shut her eyes and made a soft promise to herself. She hadn't come here for a paycheck alone. Something in those kids awakened something deep inside of her, something that spoke softly. They don't require a maid. They need someone who will care. The third evening on the job, Sophia lingered in front of the children's bedroom door a little longer than normal. The quiet, muffled sobbing had resumed. Despite her orders, no intervention beyond bedtime. She was unable to leave. Taking a deep breath, she tapped softly and looked in. The lights were down low, sending long shadows across the walls. Zara held her bear close, her tears streaming down her face, and Rayyan glared at the ceiling, his little fists balled up. Without even knocking, Sophia came in and sat on the edge of Zara's bed. "Do you want to hear a story?" she said quietly. The kids didn't answer, but they didn't say no either. Interpreting their silence as a yes, she started speaking of a story her own mom used to tell of an enchanted forest, a courageous squirrel, and two baby birds lost and searching for home. While she talked, there was a sense of tension in the room easing. Zara sat up slowly. "Why?" died, and Rayyan turned to her with an interested expression. The two children were quiet by the end of the tale. Zara's hand rested on Sophia's knee, and Rayyan smiled weakly for the first time. Sophia smiled, gently smoothed them out, again whispered "sweet dreams," and quietly departed. Outside the door she stopped, her heart racing. It was the first time the crying hadn't continued all night. The next morning, instead of typical quiet breakfast, Sophia discovered Zara in the kitchen. "Can we make pancakes?" she asked shyly. Sophia nodded, and Rayyan followed suit soon. The kitchen, which was once an antiseptic area with squeaky, clean counters and quiet meals, was now speckled with flour, giggles, and sticky fingers. Sophia didn't deter them when they dropped batter or laughed too loudly. She inspired it. With the next few days, she brought in new habits post, dinner songs, picture books hand-drawn, and bedtime dances. The kids grew to anticipate the evenings, no longer dreading the silence. Sophia had no money or high degrees, only a heart full of compassion and time to share. The mansion started to change. Laughter took over crying, and bedtime was no longer the time of tears. Unbeknownst to Sophia, she was creating something money could never do: trust, comfort, and a feeling of family. Camel came home earlier than normal one day. The burden of a botched deal weighing him down, he walked through the opulent entrance, anticipating the typical quietness and vacuity. But when he set his briefcase on the floor, something out of the ordinary seized his attention: laughter. Not strained or feeble, but free and hearty giggles ringing from the upstairs corridor. Curious, he walked in the direction of the sound, his steps light on the marble floor. Drawing closer to the children's bedroom, he could hear Sophia's voice enthusiastically telling a tale, her words undulating through the air like spell. And then the little bird said, "Even the smallest wings can fly the farthest." Zara and Rayyan erupted into peals of laughter. Camel was caught in mid-step at the door, gaping through the thin opening. The atmosphere inside left him breathless. Sophia sat cross-legged on the carpet, her hands moving in the air as she brought the characters to life. Zara was sprawled in her lap, hugging her teddy, her eyes lighting up with wonder. Rayyan rested against her shoulder, his face soft, smiling. The kind of smile Camel hadn't seen in years. There were pieces of paper and crayons lying about, forests, stars, and a menagerie of animals that suspiciously resembled the three of them. He stood there for minutes, frozen. There was a funny ache in his chest, half guilt, half awe. He had no idea how much he had missed, how much he had confused silence with peace. These weren't stories told at bedtime, they were crossing over bridges. Sophia hadn't disobeyed. She had rewritten the rules with compassion. That evening, after the children had gone to sleep, Camel invited Sophia into the study. She was hesitant, fidgety, wondering if she had overstepped. But rather than scolding her, Camel remained silent before remarking, "I noticed what you did tonight, and I don't know how to repay you." Sophia merely said, "They weren't crying for things, sir. They were crying for someone." Camel glanced down, shame flooding through him. Sophia's words cut deeper than any failed venture ever could. For the first time in 2 years, Camel did not feel like a millionaire. He felt like a father who had been gone for too long, and it was time to change that. The following morning, Camel leaned in the doorway of the kitchen, observing his children spreading peanut butter onto bread with sticky fingers and wide, happy smiles. Sophia stood beside them, offering instruction gently, allowing them to make a mess without concern. The moment was plain even, but to Camel it was magical. In the afternoon, Camel invited Sophia into the sitting room. She came slowly, wiping her hands on her apron. He motioned for her to sit. "Tell me," he said, softer than he normally did, "how did you succeed where I failed?" Sophia gazed down at her feet for an instant before responding. "I didn't do anything extraordinary, sir. I simply listened. All they were requesting was time, a listening ear, and someone to care about them. That was all they ever required." Her words came like a soft truth in the room. Camel felt a lump in his throat. He had worked years for an empire, but had not succeeded at creating a home. He saw how far he had gone from his children, confusing luxury with love. "Thank you," he replied, his voice weighed down by sincerity. "You've done more for them in 2 years than I have." From that moment on, Camel transformed. He began coming home from work earlier, sitting with the children for breakfast, coloring with Zara, and hearing Rayyan discuss books and school. He became part of their nighttime rituals, initially stiffly, then effortlessly. Sophia tactfully moved away, observing in quiet pride as the father his children required gradually reappeared. The kids had noticed as well. Rayyan was hugging his dad at bedtime, and Zara would snuggle up on his lap during reading time. The tears that had soiled their pillows were now banished by laughter, memories, and soft "I love yous." The mansion was once again a home and no longer a golden cage. Camel could never repay Sophia for what she had returned to him, but he gave her more than a wage. He gave her respect, a place in their lives for good, and most of all, thanks from a father who had finally opened his eyes to what really counted.